Welcome into ProBox TV's Big Fight Breakdown. That's right, our long-form news. We still have it here on ProBox TV. We also have top stories chopped up for you in bite-sized pieces. Get your news any way you want it. Download the ProBox TV app right now and never fall behind. Of course, the Big Fight Breakdown, Christian Mbilli taking on Sergey Derevyanchenko in a 168-pound showdown, which begs the question, are numbers more important or names? To help me bring it down, I got the names. That's right, Chris Algieri joining me in studio. Also, Paulie Malignaggi and the coach, Teddy Atlas, joining us via Zoom. Chris, that's a big question. You're working this fight, and one of the things I always say is, oh man, he's a great fighter. He's just lost to the best. And I always say, you got to beat those guys too. And if there's a problem with Derevyanchenko, he's had great fights, very, very entertaining. He's always come up short to the big names. Can he bust that label?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Derevyanchenko, he's a little bit long in the tooth. It really depends on how much he has left. You know, he's the most dangerous 15-5 fighter in the world. You're never going to see a guy with a record like that. Right? Yeah, you got to look past the numbers with a guy like Sergey. He's been in with the tip-top guys in all around these weight classes at 160 and 168. He lost to Danny Jacobs in a bid for the WBA middleweight title, and by split decision, super close fight. You know, he lost to Munguia in his last fight, which was fight of the year. Munguia essentially needed a last-round knockdown to pull that one out of the fire in order to get the win, and that was at 168. You know, he's got losses to Triple G, to Carlos Adames as well. So he only has lost to a who's who types of fighters. Is Mbilli that guy? I personally don't think so. But again, Sergey is a little bit long in the tooth. This isn't really his weight class at 168. And Mbilli has an incredible motivation, incredible momentum right now. He's one of those guys he's just a workhorse, man. He's got an incredible engine, comes in fantastic shape. He's big for the weight class. He's young, and he's motivated. So it's a very, very tall task, you know, going against a guy like Mbilli, who, you know, in the position that Derevyanchenko is at. You know, can he get the win? It's possible, but it's hard when you're battling up a weight class and you've had as many tough fights as Sergey has had. Really, the question is, how much of Sergey is there left?
The question, though, of course, Christian Mbilli, what kind of fight do you think he puts up in his biggest name so far? He's the one who doesn't have any names on his resume. Paulie, how much does that concern you coming into this fight?
A little bit. I mean, I think one thing we can all agree on about Mbilli, he's very fun to watch. He's an action fighter. He's a guy who I think has a relatively solid skill set, but he's more of a pressure guy, break you mentally, break you physically, kind of a fighter. You know, he's a physical guy, and those kind of guys tend to be fun to watch. As far as big names that are concerned, the Gongora win is a pretty good win. I'm not sure, you know, how decisive it really was. I think he's on the canvas for that fight as well. Gongora is a very crafty guy himself. You know, we've had him at our ProBox. You know, the jury's still out on Mbilli. You know, I think one thing that the jury's not out on is the fact that he's a fun fighter to watch, and I think he's going to keep entertaining. But Derevyanchenko, you got to see how much is left in him. So far, he has shown consistently that there is a lot left in him, and he's fought these ultra competitive, ultra tough fights, and giving guys all they can handle, all their money's worth, even a lot of top fighters. One thing about Derevyanchenko that you mentioned, Jimmy, you know, that he hasn't gotten the result at the top level. For me, that only is because boxing is basically a bit of a mafia in that way. In that back in the day, you had to be with Frankie Carbo, you had to be with Blinky Palermo in order to get the close decisions. Otherwise, you wouldn't get them. Today, it's okay. Just because you don't have the official organized crime involved doesn't mean it doesn't work the exact same way. If you're not with the certain people, you're not going to get those close decisions. Derevyanchenko has probably been a victim of not being the guy who's aligned with the right people in some of these fights. Very, very close losses that could have easily went his way against guys like Gennady Golovkin, against Daniel Jacobs, against Jaime Munguia, and so on and so forth. Really, I think in the other show that we had on the news piece, Chris Algieri made a good point, champ. You know, that probably the only decisive loss where you really can't see him having an argument for it is the Charlo fight. But other than that, I mean, I was at the fight at the Garden when he fought Golovkin. A lot of people were leaving the Garden thinking he won that fight, you know. So boxing, the more things change, the more things stay the same. But just because the aura is not there, or organized crime, doesn't mean the exact same thing still doesn't happen. Derevyanchenko is a very, very good fighter. He's just, you know, when you fight top fighters and you're a top fighter, typically the fights are going to be close. They're going to be competitive because, you know, there isn't a lot that separates top fighters from one another. And he just hasn't gotten the benefit of some of these close decisions. I was at the Adames fight as well. Very, very good fight, close competitive fight. This one, if Derevyanchenko still has enough left, and again, you always have to wonder because he's been in so many tough fights, and including a long amateur career. This is another good barn burner because Mbilli is still unproven, despite how fun he is and how aggressive he is.
When you look at it, Coach Teddy Atlas, when you have a guy like Mbilli, who's 29 years old, right in his physical prime, feeling strong, but it seems like the veteran guys always come up with the crafty tricks, the crafty way to win rounds and win fights. How much do you expect that to happen, and how does it happen if you're in the corner against Mbilli?
Well, all of that said and all that true, Derevyanchenko, it's definitely about experience, but it's not so much craftiness. His calling card, his MO, is what it will always be. He throws a million punches. And it just happens, like the two champions said, it just happens to fit right in perfectly with the calling card of Mbilli, where he throws punches, he comes forward. The difference is, will youth and size be served with Mbilli being younger and naturally bigger? But it's almost guaranteed, unless Derevyanchenko is a dead man, unless he's really shot, it almost guarantees that it's going to be a barn burner, like Paulie said, because of that. And again, for Derevyanchenko, it's his craftiness is, I'm going to come out, I'm going to throw punches, and I'm going to keep throwing punches, and I'm going to break your will or break you physically. And Mbilli is a younger version of that. The difference is Mbilli has not shown if he could do it at the level that Derevyanchenko has shown he can do it at. We don't know. Going into this fight, to me, it was two questions. Age, is Derevyanchenko still got something left, and what's he got left? And the other thing is, yeah, he's lost to only top guys, but here's the question to me. The only prevalent question. Is Mbilli a top guy? We don't know. We don't know. We speculate that he is, or we want him to be, but just because he's rated a top guy don't mean he's a top guy. That doesn't happen from organizations' ratings. That happens from getting in the ring, fighting top quality guys. Then you find out the merit of their rating, if they're really rated the way they truly deserve to be rated. So this is going to be interesting because, like both champions said perfectly, Mbilli, he's stepping up. Unless Derevyanchenko is really dissipated, really gone, this is going to be, even though he's the naturally smaller guy, even though he's 38, this is going to be a test for Mbilli. Does he belong at this level? Does he belong in the higher air? Can he breathe in the higher air? Or will he suffocate? That's what, not everybody can go up there to Mount Everest, to those top peaks, and be able to survive. Let's find out. Can Mbilli breathe in that thin air?
Well, to be the man, you got to beat the man, said the great Ric Flair. And one of those things about that is whenever you download the ProBox TV app, you'll see for yourself, whenever we talk about the big names in boxing, they kind of make everything run, right? Everyone's shooting for them. In this case, 168 pounds, can't talk about 168 without talking about Canelo Alvarez. Could a victorious Christian Mbilli be in that sweepstakes for the big fight against Canelo Alvarez? Does his shadow loom over this fight, Chris? That is the big question.
I'm sure it does, absolutely. Like you said, when you're in the orbit of Canelo Alvarez being at 168, yeah, he's going to be the guy that you're aiming for, and I'm sure Mbilli and his team are looking for that as well. But he's got a tough fight in front of him in Derevyanchenko. And I actually saw Mbilli a bunch of years ago, and I wasn't all that impressed. But recently, he has really, really improved, and he's posted some really good wins. Champ, you mentioned that Gongora fight, which Gongora is a really, really tough out for anybody. But Sergey is in the same boat. I used to train with Sergey, with Andre Rozier in Brooklyn. I was actually in camp when Daniel Jacobs was getting ready for Triple G. He brought in Sergey as a sparring partner to prepare him for Triple G. And then I was in camp when Daniel actually fought Sergey. So I've been around Sergey quite a bit. I've been in the gym with him. I've actually sparred with him, of course. I spar with everybody. And I'm telling you, he's not taking this fight for a fight. He's taking this fight because he thinks he can win. His team thinks he can win. They're going for a world championship. It has always eluded Sergey. Sergey is one of the best fighters to not be a world champion in the world today, in the sport today. And yeah, he's 15-5, but listen, he still believes he could be a world champion. He definitely has the skill set, obviously the experience, all those tough fights. He's not taking this fight for money. He's taking this fight to be a world champion. So he thinks he can win, which makes me think that this is going to be a great fight, just like Teddy and Paulie said.
My question for you, Paulie, Chris talked about being in the gym with guys. Teddy has asked, how much does Derevyanchenko have left? How much can you tell in the gym how much somebody has left? Can sparring tell you? Can training tell you? If he hasn't gone off a cliff, as Teddy says, it's going to be a tough fight. How much can you tell in the gym how much he has left in the tank? Is it possible?
I mean, you definitely can tell if something's left in the tank, even in the gym. But at this age, you even have good training camps, and then on fight night, you don't have anything left. You know what I mean? I've seen that at this age too. So if they're totally shot, don't get me wrong, you can tell right away, even in the gym. But at this age, you risk also where it comes together nicely in the gym, and then all of a sudden on fight night, you're just not pulling the trigger. And then because again, you got to understand. Everything is faster on fight night. The gloves are smaller. The shots hurt more. You're feeling it. There's more of an emotional nerve as anxiety as well with the crowd and the moment and the TV cameras and whatnot. You have to also understand you're performing and not just fighting now. And so there's like I said, it can just come undone all of a sudden on fight night. You don't expect it from Derevyanchenko. We haven't seen that yet. But again, when typically these things kind of sneak up on you at this age, we'll see. I thought, Teddy made a good point, and Chris made a good point in that Derevyanchenko still thinks he can become world champion. He's never been world champion. He's maybe the best fighter in this generation that hasn't become a world champion. But on the other side of that, who else hasn't been a world champion? Christian Mbilli. He hasn't been a world champion either. So we don't know. We don't know what we're going to get this fight. We just know stylistically it's a clash that is going to make for an entertaining fight. Sort of like last week when you kind of knew where Sergey Boachuk and Virgil Ortiz, those styles, when they came together, were going to make for an entertaining fight. I get that similar feeling about this fight.
When you look at Mbilli, you talked about, Teddy, his size, right? His youth, 29 years old, hasn't been through the tough fight, the long rounds that Derevyanchenko has been through. How does he, A, win the fight and look impressive enough to maybe once again get on the radar of somebody like Canelo Alvarez? What's your take on that?
Well, I know how he's not going to win it. He's not going to win it by showing up and being another, making you think he's Pernell Whitaker. He ain't winning it that way. He's not going to show up and win it by making you think you're watching another version of Floyd Mayweather. I mean, that's not him. He's going to win it or lose it with what brought him to the dance, as we love to say, in our society. We love to use, obviously, that old cliche. But it's true. If he tries to change now, he's got a problem. He's going to win by physically and mentally instilling himself onto the smaller, older guy. And when we age Derevyanchenko, we think about, I always say that we don't judge the age of a fighter chronologically. It's about the amount of punches they've taken, the amount of tough fights. He's only had 20 fights, like Chris pointed out. But 5 of those, the losses, have been to top guys in tough fights. And aside from that, he had a huge amateur career, like a lot of these guys do, from the part of the world that he comes from, and being able to get to the status that he's gotten to. Part of that is because of his amateur pedigree. He's probably had 200, 250, possibly more amateur fights. So that is all being weighed in the balance as far as age. Again, to your question, Jimmy, if he's going to win the fight, he's going to be younger, he's going to be bigger, he's going to be busier, he's going to be physically stronger. Can he show some nuances? You hope so. Certain guys, they don't improve. They stay with that all the way through. Certain guys do improve. And it's important to improve because no matter how tough you are, no matter how strong you are, I've always said this, you have to balance it with also being smart, by being clever, by having good technique. You have to. You have to do that. The guys that don't, they might get to the top. They don't stay long. They don't stay long. So Can he throw in things to answer your question for me, like maybe a feint? A feint would be beautiful for a guy like Mbilli. Why? Because you know he's aggressive. You believe it. You're gonna buy in. If you know he's coming at you. You don't think he's gonna try to pretend to be Pernell Whitaker. He's coming forward. So if he feinted a little bit before he came forward, you would bite on that. You would go for that. You might be kept off balance by that. And that would serve him. That would help his aggression. That it would help him be smarter with his aggression, more effective with his aggression, get hit less with his aggression. So, but at the end of the day, Paulie had it, Chris had it right. It almost has to be a really good fight because both guys, their MOs are very, very similar. If this was a case out on the street for a detective, it'd be easy to trace these guys down. Yeah, that's them. That's them. Yeah, they came in, they ripped the place apart, they wrecked the joint. Yeah, that's them. Let's go find them.
Let's talk about the mental side of a fight like this. Because when I think volume, I think about Paul Williams. People remember him at 160, that middleweight class. Throw 100, 150 punches around. And when people had to fight Paul Williams, it was almost like they went, oh, God, this is going to be just difficult. I have to deal with a ton of punches. Chris, the mental side of dealing with the volume puncher. What is that like getting ready for somebody like that?
Listen, both these guys are like
Pacquiao,
that.
by the way.
Yeah, that's another thing. Both these guys are actually that way. I think anyone who fight either one of these guys, like, it's going to be a long night. It's going to be a tough night. Super durable guys who throw tons of punches that are in your face. Mbilli's huge. He's really big for the weight class. He's one of those guys. He lives a lifestyle. He's in great shape. For me, with Mbilli, it's his engine. He does not get tired, and he throws bombs from round 1 through round 12. In that Gongora fight, man, he was unloading nonstop. It was unbelievable. I was so impressed with his engine in that fight particularly, but really that's really his MO. He comes forward, he throws a ton of punches. He's durable. He's been down, sure, but when you're throwing all those punches, you're there to be hit as well. And Sergey's very, very similar. Sergey comes forward, throws a ton of punches, a little more technical. His nickname is the Technician, because he is very, very technical fighter. He's got good hand position. Teddy, you mentioned his amateur background. I think he has close to 300, actually, in terms of amateur fights, does Sergey. But this is one of those fights where, yeah, man, you're going to go into that with that mindset like, oh, it's going to be a long night. And that's where age plays a role once again. And Billy's ready for that fight. And Billy knows he's got a guy in front of him that, all right, this is going to be a long night. It's going to be tough. I'm going to have to work really hard. Guess what? That's every fight when Billy goes into. He is used to being in these fights. He forces these fights on people. Sergey, who also forces these fights on people, he's 38. I'm telling you, man, Paul, you said it. Like you don't know till you know. And it turns that corner real quick. And a lot of that is up here and in here. When you got to look deep into your soul getting ready for a fight like this, it's like, man, am I willing to go back to that well one more time? Do I really want to do this?
It is too, Chris, from the physical point where some of it is the legs. I've been in gyms with guys that going in, we knew they were in the twilight. We did. I've been in a couple guys. I'm not going to name their names, and they were for world titles, where I knew that they were obviously getting long in the tooth, and I was concerned, and I was looking. And in the gyms, in the sparring, I saw it. I saw it in their legs.
Junior Jones.
All right, you got one of them. All right. There you go, Paulie. You're the man, Paulie.
I'm old enough, Teddy.
That's why I love being with you guys. And at the same time, I hate it. Because
it's my life. It's my life, Teddy.
You can't put nothing past you guys. And Jimmy, I love you, but you're not getting a Christmas card. You keep making me laugh. And all the time when you're last with these guys, you know what? You come up last. You come up short. But yeah, he gets one. I'm not giving you the other one. And don't even guess because you'll probably get it. So please. But the legs. I'm in the gym sparring, and hey, you were sparring with him. So you really know. Paulie was sparring with him. Paulie, if it wasn't for Paulie being one of our sparring partners, we probably wouldn't have had as good a showing as we had with Paul Angle for the world title, where we almost won it, where Junior dropped him. He dropped him. And
Junior's legs cost him in the end. He was well.
100%. And I remember I said, I'm going to set up this whole camp where I'm not going to push him too hard. because if I push him too hard, whatever's left won't be left. So I want everything left. So I pushed him just enough, not too hard, purposely, to have something left. Whatever could be left, I wanted it left for one place, that fight. And I said to Gary Gittleson, his manager, I said to him, he said, what do you think? We all knew where we were, that he was older and everything else. And I said, well, my whole plan and hope is that we can drop him with a right hand. Junior fought, he punched well with the right hand, and I thought we could catch him with a right hand. Angle comes at you, he's in front of you, he sometimes leads with left hooks. I was hoping that, and you could time him with the right hand over the jab sometimes. I was hoping, so I concentrated on looking to land the right hand. So I said to him, I think
it was one day in sparring, he landed it good on me. I remember that too.
No,
I remember you were happy.
Well, yeah.
Now I understand what you were working
you know,
on. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Not because I.
But Coach, do you get a similar thing from Derevyanchenko? Do you get that similar? If there's something left, you got to use it.
At the end of the day, going in there, I remember answering Gary Gittleson, the manager, who did a good job. I remember saying, "Well, I think we can land the right hand, and if we land it, I think we can hurt him. We can drop him." And he goes, "Well, that's great." I said, "Yeah, but the bad part is if he gets up, we're done." And
got up. Got up.
And he got up.
Paulie, I got to ask you.
As soon as he got up, guys, as soon as he got up, I went like, "Oh, that's it. That's all right."
Threw the towel, and that was it. Paulie,
That's it.
a similar question for you, Paul. You've been critical of some judging. Could it be the guy who just finishes strong in rounds, who knows how to, quote-unquote, steal rounds in this one, where we know that there are going to be a lot of punches thrown, it might be hard to score? What's your thought on that? What does the winner need to steal minutes and rounds?
You know what it is?
Yep.
The fight being in Quebec City is going to allow Mbilli to steal wins and steal
Who
minutes.
fights out of Quebec? Frenchman fights out of Quebec.
Yeah, again, hard luck, Derevyanchenko. He's got to go to these guys' hometowns. He had to go to Anaheim, which is where Munguia fights all his fights, and fight Munguia. He had not as much popularity as guys like Jacobs, who was from New York, or Golovkin, who was a bigger name in general. I don't think he fought there. Chris, where did he fight Danny? He fought him in Vegas.
No, that was in New York as well.
Yeah.
I think that was in Barclays.
Backyard. Yeah.
Might have been Barclays, or maybe might have been the Garden.
Again, the hard luck guy, has gloves. Yeah, so has gloves. Will travel.
Well, having gloves will travel. Hopefully, he can do. Yeah.
They end up sort of getting into a little bit of a rut. Like they get used to coming up just short. For example, he got dropped in round 12 against Munguia. It was almost like you just knew something bad had to happen to Derevyanchenko in round 12, because that's what always happens. Something where he comes up just short, right? So if you're going to come up just short, he goes and gets dropped in round 12.
Such a good point.
And Paulie, he got dropped in round 1 against Jacobs.
75% of this game is mental. That's such a good point, because it's almost like, and I've been there, it's almost like they're waiting for something bad to happen. When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? Something bad's going to happen. There's no way I can get to the finish line without something bad happening. And
I think he got dropped early against Triple G as well. I think all of those fights, he went down and
in close fights,
in very, very close fights, and he was not able to get those knockdowns back. And it's funny you mentioned the guys just steal rounds. Sergey's actually really good at stealing rounds because he comes on strong at the end. But
it also depends on who you are, because if you got the right name, you can get knocked down and still win the fight. Just ask Virgil Ortiz on Saturday night. So
twice.
It doesn't really matter.
We're all talking about the same issue. At the end of the day, it comes down to the politics of it.
We try to say, oh, it's this, and that. Listen, the guy has been all of these fights. He lost close. Usually a guy, if it's really called down the middle, a guy will at least get one. You'll get one here. You don't get the other one there. They're close. He doesn't get any of them. I mean, come on, man. It is that kind of thing. He's going to be dealing with it again this weekend because Mbilli is from France, but Quebec City has that French-Canadian population. There's a reason the fight is put in Quebec City.
But that's also why I said the momentum that Mbilli's got. Everyone's talking about Mbilli. He's undefeated. He's in this weight class, like you mentioned.
He didn't look
Jimmy,
good against Gongora. He got dropped.
No, I mean, I've seen him not look good in a number of fights. Like I said, I'm not super impressed, and I'm definitely still open to my final conclusion about what Mbilli really is. But he's got a big machine behind him that's pushing him. He's got top rank. He's at 68. There's a lot of money for him to be an undefeated guy to get that Canelo fight. So there is a big push.
Like we said before, we know, what do we know? What do we not know? We know that Derevyanchenko can compete and be this close, maybe get robbed, but be this close to beating the top guys. We don't know that. The jury is still out on whether or not Mbilli, with his beautiful record and everything, and his great style, and a hometown edge, we don't know if he can compete at that level. We're going to find out, hopefully.
You got to look at it, too. If you look at Canelo's last couple opponents, right? Who would they have to get through in order to get to Canelo? Sergey Derevyanchenko. Munguia beats Derevyanchenko last year. He fights Sean Ryder. He fights Canelo.
Yes.
Charlo is another.
Don't go there, champ. Don't go there. Don't.
I'm just saying, like, no.
I'm just saying.
So I'm saying the push from Team Mbilli is like, hey, we get the Sergey guy, we beat him, we get the Canelo fight, right? Well, not really.
What have we been saying about Mbilli? Is he as good as advertised? Right. That's the question mark. Well, if you're not as good as advertised, but you're advertised nonetheless. You're in the Canelo sweepstakes.
Well, this is exactly what I'm saying.
Look good, not great is often the recipe to get the Canelo fight. But here at ProBox TV, we always look great. That's right. Thank you so much for joining us once again for the Big Fight Breakdown. Download the app, ProBox TV. Never miss out on boxing news, and we'll see you next time.
Wednesday Night Fights.
Dynamite action on Wednesday Night Fights every other Wednesday on your boxing channel.
Coming up on your next Wednesday Night Fights, August 21st. Former Unified World Champion Swift Jarrett Hurd takes on former Unified World Champion Jason Banana Rosario. Live from the ProBox Event Center in Plant City. Get your tickets at proboxtv.com or take your chances at the door. Wednesday Night Fights.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.